Please remain standing for the invocation, which will be delivered by Pastor Brenton Smith of Park Community Church, Forest Glen. Pastor, the floor is yours.
Good morning, friends.
Good morning.
I'm a pastor at Park Community Church, but one of the greatest things I also get to do is to serve in a church called Iglesia Cristiana La Vid, which is a Spanish church on the north side of the city in Rogers Park. One of the things I would just want to do really quick, then I'll jump into prayer, is to convey a message from one of our friends that have come from Venezuela. Short, quick, it won't take long. I will not go over my 3 minutes that I was given. Today is a good day to thank God for the life and the strength He gave us to get here, a country that gives us new opportunities. I thank God from the bottom of my heart for the life of each person who makes this possible. Thanks to the city of Chicago for all their help and effort they are doing for us to have a better quality of life, opportunity to grow and get ahead. Thank you, Chicago. Now, being Hispanic Heritage Month, I'm going to start my prayer in Spanish and then end in English. Dios Todopoderoso, el Dios de todos los siglos, te damos gracias porque estás con nosotros. Te damos gracias que tenemos gobernantes que nos ayudan a vivir de una manera ordenada. Te damos gracias por las leyes que has puesto también, Señor, y por el tiempo que cada persona aquí que ha dado para servir a esta ciudad, para servir a este país. God, we want to thank you for your love. We want to thank you for your mercy. We want to thank you for your grace. And God, in these moments as we come together, we know that we need wisdom to be able to run a city, to listen to the stories, to encourage and help. God, I pray for every person that's here. I pray for Mayor Lightfoot. I pray as there's conversations that happen all day long with topics that many of us don't even know about. God, I pray that you'd give them infinite wisdom, discernment, love, care. And it's all in the wonderful name of Jesus Christ, the author and perfecter of our faith. It's in His name that we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah.
Madam Clerk, please read the call of today's special meeting.
The following call for a special meeting of the City Council was filed in my office on Wednesday, September 28th, 2022 at 9:35 a.m. Dear Ms. Valencia, I hereby call a special meeting of the City Council of the City of Chicago to be convened at 10 a.m. on Monday, October 3rd, 2022 in the City Council Chamber and City Hall for the following purposes and for no other purpose whatsoever. 1, to receive the executive budget for the year beginning January 1st, 2023 and ending December 31st, 2023 at the mayor's budget message relating thereto. And 2, to receive and place on file a communication from the budget director regarding estimated levies. And 3, to consider a resolution calling for publication of the 2023 executive budget, setting the date, time, and place of the public hearing on the executive budget. Very truly yours, Lori Lightfoot, Mayor.
The chair recognizes Alderman Irvin.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to move to suspend the rules to allow for the sign language interpreter here to my left, or one or more of them, for our Commissioner of Mayor's Office of People with Disabilities.
Hearing no objection, so ordered. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now have public comment. Mr. Clerk.
The council will now begin the public comment period, which is limited to a maximum of 30 minutes. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. Speakers cannot yield or transfer their time to another speaker. Any written comments that have been submitted will be posted and made available for aldermanic review. Our first speaker today is Claiborne Wade.
Good morning, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Claiborne Wade, proud father of 4 CPS students. I work for Family Focus Lawndale as the parent liaison at Oscar DePriest Elementary School. In its first 2 years, Chicago Connected provided at-home broadband to more than 100,000 students across 60,000 households at a time when without internet, students would have not been able to attend school. The parents that I work with at Oscar the Priest on a daily basis expressed to me that the program is a game changer. They are able to access quality internet from home, scheduling doctor's appointments, enrolling in higher education, and career searching. More monies in the pockets of working families because it's one less bill that they have to pay. Our kids are no longer doing homework or projects on their cell phones. Having quality internet gives our kids a chance to make it. The internet is their window to the world. Chicago Connected has made historic progress, but we must not stop there. I'm excited to see that the city's $28 million commitment to investing in digital equity solutions in response to community member needs that tap in community strengths. The Chicago Digital Equity Council has taken a thoughtful and international approach to hearing about folks' experience with internet, devices, and digital learning on the ground. In a few weeks, we are hosting a conversation in our community of Austin to ensure our voices are heard. City Chicago Connected demonstrated the importance of having a network of trusted community partners and equitable consumer policies. It is crucial that the city build upon the progress of Chicago Connected to ensure there is an affordable quality broadband option for all families in the long term. And I support the city's continued and growing investment in this space. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wade, for your comments. Our next speaker is Rebecca Lubin.
Hello, my name is Becca Lubo. I live in Alderman Wagasback's ward. Every day on my way to work, I pass a group of tents under a bridge a block away from my apartment. And my houseless neighbors sleep there because the city has failed them. I've seen those tents in the rain and snow and on days when it's too cold for human beings to safely sleep outside. I'm here because affordable housing is necessary for survival, which makes it a human right. Houselessness is already a crisis in this city, and the problem is growing. The Economic Roundtable projects that chronic homelessness will increase by 49% over the next 4 years if we don't take action. Last year, Mayor Lightfoot and City Council passed a budget with $65 million directed to permanent supportive housing and an additional $20 million allocated for rapid rehousing using federal COVID relief funds, but that's a one-time fix. When those funds run out, this body will still need a permanent funding source to address the ongoing housing crisis. And as my neighbors prepare to spend this winter in the street, we are in a historic real estate boom. A progressive real estate transfer tax on the sale of properties worth over $1 million could raise millions for affordable housing and wraparound services like mental health care and job training to keep people housed. It's time to pass Bring Chicago Home, a community-driven, practical plan to solve the homelessness crisis. Give the people of Chicago the opportunity to vote on it. That's all we're asking. Put Bring Chicago Home on the ballot, and I know we will choose to house our neighbors by asking people fortunate and privileged enough to be selling skyscrapers to pay just a little bit more of their fair share. 65K need a place to stay. There are 65,000 people experiencing homelessness in Chicago right now. That's enough people to populate an entire ward. The 51st ward includes children and parents and elders experiencing homelessness, and the 51st ward doesn't have representation in this building. I'm here today with the Chicago Coalition for the Homeless to change that. We demand that City Council and Mayor Lightfoot meet your obligations to the people of the 51st ward and pass Bring Chicago Home now.
Thank you, Ms. Lubo, for your comments. Our next speaker is Prina Trevnan.
Good morning. My name is Panina Trainin, and I'm a public health professional and a social worker. I moved to Chicago 2 years ago, and I have been working in housing navigation in a primary healthcare setting. The team I work with helps individuals experiencing homelessness identify housing waitlists they are eligible for and assist them with signing up for these waitlists. We also assist individuals with connecting to services such as food access, transportation, legal services, and mental health and medical care. Because stable, safe housing is a basic human need, and because housing and health are so intertwined, many individuals experiencing homelessness are also experiencing adverse health outcomes that are exacerbated by these experiences. My team diligently provides information and assistance to folks experiencing homelessness on a daily basis, and long, lengthy wait lists are primarily the services we are able to provide. Over the past 2 years, the amount of times I have had to deliver the news to an individual seeking housing that there is nothing more they can do at this time besides wait indefinitely is hard to bear. I've witnessed individuals' medical conditions worsen and lives lost during this indefinite wait period, a wait period that sometimes lasts forever due to what the city states as lack of resources. This is not an isolated experience. 65,000 of our neighbors in Chicago are waiting for more resources. We need Bring Chicago Home on the ballot immediately to provide the much needed housing resources our neighbors have been waiting for. Bring Chicago Home will change service delivery for my team and other housing and homelessness service providers. Bring Chicago Home will allow us to connect individuals to the housing resources they are diligently seeking. Bring Chicago Home will allow more people to access housing and therefore improve health. Providing this dedicated revenue stream will help make Chicago a more equitable and healthier city for all who live here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Trainin, for your comments. Our next speaker is Daryl Jemison.
Good morning. I'm currently living in a shelter on the west side of Chicago. And I've been in several shelters throughout the years because of certain circumstances, personal circumstances. But in most of the shelters here that I've experienced, most of them, the services are horrendous as far as in reference to sanitation, as far as in certain foods that they give people that are outdated, as far as certain people in administrative capacities do not understand or have the empathy for the plight of the people that they're supposed to be able to help or supposed to help. Primarily, there's a lot of mental issues. There's a lot of drug issues. They have certain therapists that are not trained for the specific situations that people are in. They put everybody in a melting pot and try to stir it up, and it's not functioning. A lot of the places do not have adequate facilities for the homeless, and primarily, most of the people there have lost their dignity and respect for themselves. So in my personal opinion, from my experience, there needs to be a confab of not only spiritual and psychological, but people geared to specific needs of specific individuals and their situation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Jemison, for your comments. Our next speaker is Mr. George Blakemore.
Okay. Good afternoon, Mr. Blakemore. You know, it's this morning. Perhaps they should have had this dog and pony show on the road around 5:30 or 6. And when they're in these rich suburbs, they have their meetings where the working poor can attend them. Anyway, thank you, Lady Lightfoot, for not going up on the tax. My problem I have many problems with the city of Chicago, our great city that set on the lake. But with the budget, all this money that's set aside for these road police, it's a problem with these racist, white, policemen in the city of Chicago. Does Black Lives Matter? White lives matter. Hispanic lives matter. Asian lives matter. Well, when hundreds of millions of dollars are spent on police abuse and selling it, but the budget, police budget, gonna be almost $1 billion or more. So don't blame nepotism, racism, corruption. Don't bring this doo-doo that's going on in Chicago with Lady Lightfoot. It's been here under Ron Emanuel, under Richard Daley, under all of them. You too, boo, back to you. Racism is a culture of corruption here in this city. And you're going to make Lady Lightfoot your scapegoat. All the other candidates, I believe, and I have every right to believe this. I'm watching the other candidates, and none of them have the qualification of Lady Lightfoot. She's smart. She's black. And she's a lady. So when you get rid of her, who you gonna put in? The others, you must look. You must think analytical. You have a leader already in place to clean up this doo-doo. That's 100 years of doo-doo in the city of Chicago. She didn't bring COVID-19. She didn't bring racism, nepotism. All right. I'm for you.
Mr. Blakemore, thank you very much for your comments. However, your time has expired. Our next speaker is Carla Johnson.
Good morning, Mayor Lightfoot. My name is Carla Johnson. This is my first time at City Council. I am a great grandmother and I have experienced homelessness for the last 4 years. In June, I was fortunate enough to be able to get into a senior living facility. After getting to the senior living facility, my son, my 35-year-old son, became homeless. So now my son is having to stay with me in my senior living apartment until he's able to find somewhere. As we mentioned earlier, that 65,000 people in the city of Chicago are experiencing homelessness. We have been working, trying to come up with a solution. I'm a member of the Bring Chicago Home Coalition, and we wanted to get the real estate transfer tax on the ballot. The sale of the Thompson Center to the Google would have made that somewhat possible. Those funds could have been explicitly used for the homeless. We need solutions, not Band-Aids, for the homeless problem that we have in the city of Chicago. We have a beautiful city. They're growing, they're expanding, but we do have a problem. Not only is crime a problem, but mental illness is a problem and homelessness is our problem. We're asking the mayor if she would please consider putting that real estate transfer tax onto the ballot. Thank you. Also, if you can look at the tents that are down on the first floor, that represents that 51st ward that we're talking about, those 65,000 people that are homeless. They're in the lobby. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson, for your comments. Our next speaker is Richard Ducantanez.
Good morning, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Richard Ducantanez, and I am the Executive Director of Franciscan Outreach, a leading provider of homeless services here in Chicago. We operate as a system of support for individuals who are marginalized and experiencing homelessness. Through 5 service sites, we operate over 300 emergency shelter beds, primarily located in the North Lawndale, East Garfield Park, and Pilsen communities. Every day, we offer healthy meals, warm beds, and vital case management for those who need guidance and access to critical resources such as housing, healthcare, income and employment, and substance abuse treatment. This year, we received additional funding from the Chicago Department of Family and Support Services that allowed our organization to offer a starting wage of over $19 an hour for frontline staff. And we were also able to provide additional case management support for our guests. Last week, the Department of Housing released an RFP to fund the acquisition and possible rehabilitation of buildings and other properties within the city of Chicago to be used as non-congregate shelter for people experiencing homelessness. This is a tremendous leap forward for improved public health for individuals residing in emergency shelters. The department seeks proposals from operators of existing homeless shelters who are in fundamental need and critical need for new space to provide emergency shelter. However, the Department of Housing will provide grant funding to support capital expenses only and does not solicit the funding for ongoing shelter operations. Conversion of shelters from a congregate to a non-congregate setting will require significant additional operating funds. I'm here today to request consideration of additional infrastructure funding for existing shelters to provide to be able to successfully meet the demands and costs associated with the operations of non-congregate shelter. While we fully support the goal to transition shelter operations to a non-congregate setting, we do acknowledge this will require additional resources. This will require the provision of private units, which have in-unit bathrooms as well as communal space. We anticipate, due to these demands, that there will be an increase in personnel as well as non-personnel related costs to operate under this environment. As you know, emergency shelters are critical to the system, and we serve as the vital safety net that saves thousands of lives each year, especially during inclement weather. And as far as need for additional permanent housing, as already spoken to today, we do believe that the Bring Chicago Home campaign can help solve this problem. With this initiative could potentially raise $160 million each year that could be dedicated to housing our guests and our most vulnerable neighbors. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. DeCantonis, for your comments. Our next speaker is Carolyn Ross.
Carolyn, please press *6 to unmute.
Thank you, and good morning, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. I'm Carolyn Ross, President and CEO of All Chicago Making Homelessness History. I'm here today to convey our appreciation and support in reference to how the city has invested Chicago Recovery Plan resources into the service system of housing and homelessness. All Chicago works closely with stakeholders throughout Chicago and serves as the lead nonprofit partner on preventing and ending homelessness in the city of Chicago. All Chicago does not provide direct services. Rather, we coordinate system-wide solutions such as the Expedited Housing Initiative, which coordinates many homeless service providers to use moving events at shelters and encampments to help people experiencing homelessness move quickly into housing. All Chicago also coordinates other homeless solutions such as the city's shelter diversion pilot program, employment programming, which connects people experiencing homelessness to employment training and benefit enrollment opportunities, and managing programs focused on providing rental assistance and homeless prevention funding. In 2021, All Chicago coordinated the Chicago Continuum of Care to create a plan on how federal COVID-19 recovery funds should be utilized. The Chicago Continuum of Care is made up of over 100 stakeholders invested in preventing and ending homelessness, including city departments, homeless and gender-based violence service providers, people with lived experience, philanthropic partners, business representatives, and affordable housing developers. We are grateful that the COC was heard and the COC's request for these investments needed to prevent and end homelessness in Chicago are included in the Chicago Recovery Plan. In order to prevent and end homelessness for all Chicagoans, we know we need access to safe shelter options, which is why the COC requested the city invest in shelter facility upgrades and creating access to non-congregate shelter options. Shelter is often the last resort for people facing homelessness, and it's also one of the best ways we can engage with people experiencing homelessness to get them on a housing pathway to end their homelessness for good. We believe the city's efforts around the shelter are critical investments for people who are experiencing homelessness. We know we need more access to affordable housing. We're experiencing this issue throughout the city and the country, and the Chicago Recovery Plan's investments in affordable housing creation, along with continued investments, will begin to close that gap. We know we need homelessness dedicated programs for our neighbors that need both a housing subsidy and housing stabilization supports. Specifically, I've seen how directly these investments in a homeless dedicated program model called Rapid Rehousing has housed over 1,700 people in the last 18 months. This program, the Expedited Housing Initiative, coordinated by All Chicago, has resulted in a significant
Ms. Ross?
increase in the
Ms. Ross, thank you very much for your comments. However, your time has expired. Our next speaker is Ariel Dene.
Ariel Dene is not present.
Our next speaker is Robert Castaneda.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Robert Castaneda. I am the Executive Director of Beyond the Ball. Thank you for allowing me to participate in this process today. I was originally born and raised on the south side of Chicago, in the south side of Chicago, the neighborhood of South Chicago, where my father and my grandfather both worked in the steel mills before they were closed down. For the past 24 years, I lived on the west side in South Lawndale, also known as Little Village. This morning, I'm here to advocate for the funding that supports community services, especially those related to violence prevention and reduction. Today, I'm speaking to you not just as a leader of a community-based nonprofit, but as a Chicagoan. Although we are not city employees, every day thousands of Chicagoans like myself work tirelessly to make our city a better and safer place, and the dollars that fund community services are critical to our work. At Beyond the Ball, we're known globally for the work that we do in sport and play-based youth and community development. And I could say that in my last 20 years of being, I would say, overly involved in my community and in our city, I'm here to report that the investments that are being made in this work are not just having a huge impact, but the investments are being used in a more strategic way than I've ever seen them being used. So again, thank you all for your time and for your continued support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Castaneda, for your comments. Your Honor, there are no other speakers who have timely signed up for the public comment period.
This concludes the public comment period. The council will stand in recess for 5 minutes.
that
Next up, ladies and gentlemen, is communications. Madam Clerk.
Ladies and gentlemen, I transmit here with the proposed 2023 budget recommendations. Your favorable consideration of this item will be appreciated. Very truly yours, Lori Lightfoot, Mayor. Referred to the Committee on Budget and Government Operations. I, City Clerk Ann Valencia, have received a communication from Susie Park, Budget Director, dated October 3rd, 2022, pursuant to Section 18-55 of the Illinois Truth in Taxation Law regarding the 2023 aggregate property tax levies, which is placed on file. That concludes communications.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Ladies and gentlemen, over the last 3.5 years, our city, our government, and our people have faced unprecedented challenges. Our entire way of life has changed, and we're still finding our way to our new normal. And as we continue to put the pandemic in the rearview mirror, our city is as strong and resilient as ever before, and our future is bright. Budgets passed by this body have consistently met the moment. the challenges we have faced by providing our residents with the support they needed when they needed it. Along with me, every year, a majority of this body has made the tough but necessary decisions to continue our journey to be true fiscal fiduciaries that the job demands, to meet our pension obligations, to end scoop and toss, and in the process, to close historic budget deficits. You recall, we first closed an $838 million deficit left by the previous administration, and then a COVID-19 induced deficit of $1.2 billion. We met each of these challenges without cutting services and without laying off employees. I want to thank each and every one of you who joined me in making the tough calls, put aside the politics, and worked not just as advocates for your ward, but as fiduciaries for the entire city. All of our residents have and will continue to benefit from your thoughtful and intentional stewardship. But as you know, budgets are not just math problems. They are and must be value statements. Value statements about how and why we invest, and importantly in this city, where we invest. From my first official words as the 56th mayor of the city, I challenge each of us to see the whole city, the beautiful mosaic that we call home, all 77 neighborhoods, and especially those that have been historically neglected for far too long. I have, and I will continue to be, unapologetic about the need to invest south of Roosevelt Road and west of Ashland. All of our children have a right to see, feel, and touch the richness that one of the wealthiest cities in the world has to offer. And let me remind you, neglect is not cost-free. Neglect is not only morally wrong, but is also fiscally foolish, as we have come to know in this city all too well. We have been carrying a heavy burden for decades of neglect, whether we want to acknowledge it or not. It shows up in the billions that we have spent on policing and incarceration instead of pouring a fraction of those dollars into better schools, affordable housing, jobs, and infrastructure. It shows up in the trauma that shrouds too many of our homes and neighborhoods and chokes off the dreams and aspirations of individual communities. What I have asked this body to do over 3 successive years, and now again today with a 4th budget, is to be bold with me, to continue to right historic wrongs, so that all of our residents who call this beloved city home will benefit and be able to fulfill their God-given potential. As a result of coming together and working in collaboration, we have scored historic wins for our residents in these past 3 budgets. Getting our fiscal house in order is foundational to all the other investments that we want and need to make for our residents. Over and over again, with your collaboration, we have changed historic financial practices by living within our means so that we can end the practices of compelling taxpayers to bail us out from our fiscal mismanagement. Last year, we climbed the debt ramp by ending scoop and toss, and now we are paying down our total outstanding debt. Thanks to better cash flow management, I am proud to share that we have lowered the city's general debt by $340 million and saved $22 million by eliminating a $1 billion line of credit at the start of my term. By fiscal year 2023, we will have reduced our outstanding debt by $866 million. And we will be able to use those savings to continue fixing our roads, bridges, and shores through the Chicago Works capital plan and developing a safer and more resilient communities with the Chicago Recovery Plan. Our equity-based investment strategy that includes $1.9 billion from the American Rescue Plan Act and another $660 million in local bond funds. This infrastructure work benefits every resident in every neighborhood, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is a big win for our residents. Next, our pension obligations. Those obligations are real, not a nicety, but a necessity for us to meet for essential workers who kept us safe and provided city services during the pandemic and more, depending on us to keep our historic promises to them. This city is home to over 23,000 pensioners who collectively dedicated over 900,000 years of service to our city. These are daughters and sons of Chicago who worked day in and day out to protect our city and keep it running. In return for their service and sacrifice, we promised them a pension. So fulfilling our pension obligations is sacrosanct. And I am proud to say that with the 2022 budget, we were able to finally climb the $1 billion ramp to actuarial-based funding. Moreover, for the first time in our city's history, we are now paying an actuarially calculated pension contribution for all 4 of our pension funds. This means that we have started to make the minimum payment on our pension credit card and slowed the climb of our pension debt. Additionally, for the first time in 15 years, we are actually increasing the assets we have to cover our pension liability, or the pension funded ratio. This is another historic win for our pensioners, the police, fire, laborers, and other municipal employees who continue delivering for our residents as public servants and depend upon the pensions that they are earning every day. And while we're on pensions, we can't forget the work that we've done to secure a $2 billion casino for revenues for the police and fire pensions, as well as $2 billion in revenue that will go to the state of Illinois to fund vertical capital projects across the state. After 3 decades of pursuit, this casino will generate 3,000 construction jobs, 3,000 operating jobs, and is one of the most equitable casino projects in the country. And while we have been getting our fiscal house in order, we have also, as you know, been making transformative investments in people and places. This work begins, of course, where we always begin, by looking internally for savings. We also have, or recently announced, paid parental leave for all of our employees. Under this new policy, all city employees will receive up to 12 weeks of paid parental leave, regardless of whether they are birthing or a non-birthing parent. This will ensure that parents have the time to bond with their new child, heal from birth, and receive their city wages for the entirety of those 12 weeks. This is a big step forward for our city employees. Externally, and every year, we've also continued to make meaningful investments in overall community safety. Recognizing public safety must be data-driven and involve deep community collaboration. We are doing the work to have the best trained, constitutionally driven police force and are creating alternative forms of crisis response, all while recognizing that lasting peace only comes through investing our way out of the root causes of the violence and not simply arresting our way out of the problem. Study after study tells us that the built environment, and specifically public infrastructure, plays a key role in community safety. The Chicago Department of Transportation's work in improving streets and alleys and lighting plays an important role in helping combat crime. Since the investments in the Chicago Works Plan, CDOT has paved 262 miles of streets and alleys and installed 280,000 smart lighting fixtures across our city, saving us over $100 million in 10 years. This has been particularly important in our most neglected communities, where deferred maintenance meant poor lighting and potholes and crumbling streets were the norm. Thank you, Commissioner Biaggi and your whole team, for your great work. Overall, with fiscal year 22's budget alone, we have made over $400 million in investments across various initiatives to enhance community safety through supports for our police officers and the department's infrastructure, as well as officer wellness. We have made dramatic increases in investments for violence prevention and programs such as street outreach, which was a mere $1 million when I took office, and now is at 15 times that amount with $52 million annually, in addition to the investments funded through the Chicago Recovery Plan per year. We have also invested in support for community organizations, block clubs, and addressing quality of life issues that are the magnets for crimes. This includes an $87 million investment in the largest vacant lot cleanup program in the city's history and one of the largest in the country. Research has shown vacant lot cleanup programs have significant impacts in reducing gun violence and increasing community safety. We have also made deep investments in our youth and their families. For example, connecting our young people to safe and productive activities in their out-of-school time, summer jobs, and year-round youth employment. We have also not ignored the trauma and health concerns that afflict way too many people across our city. Beginning with our first budget in 2019, we have increased mental health funding more than 7-fold, as the mental health budget was then $12 million annually, and as of 2022 is now $89 million. Dr. Arwitty and her team at Public Health have done a phenomenal job. And let me also say that prior to this administration, city-funded services served approximately 2,500 people a year with mental health challenges. But this year, as a result of the work and the investment of the Department of Public Health, we will serve approximately 60,000 people with free mental health services across our city. And importantly, we are now serving youth and